Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we're gonna start exploring the autosave feature and what happens when you disable it. Now, before we walk into start disabling things and checking the side effects of that and how to fix those, let's go ahead and check out the current implementation of the app. So if you take a look at the app, it has the records saving. So let's go ahead and create a few more. And I'm gonna create one record and update the expiration date for this one and go ahead and save it. Now, as you know that if you go in the add update pantry item and go under the save function, you gotta notice that although we called model context.insert, we never call model context.save, meaning we are with the help of model context, we are staging all the changes, but we are not saving them ultimately into the persistent store. Now that is what autosave feature, which is enabled by default, does. Now where do we find it? This one method or one parameter is called is autosave enabled. And by default, this is enabled. So it is basically set as true. All right, let's go ahead and try and see if we can look at the definition for model context. And if you look at, the model container modifier, if you look at it, the first parameter is the type of the model, the persistent model that we are interested in. The second one is in memory, basically stating that the data that stays in the memory. It never persists on the disk. This is the use case that you're going to use basically when you're creating a data set, basically to deal with or to test out your preview section, or whatever you're showing in the preview macro. Okay, now this is already false. This is automatically by default is false, and you can set it to true for the preview use cases. Now next comes is auto save enabled, and this one is true. Basically what it says is the records on the disk will automatically be saved whenever model context is set. Basically it has the changes. Okay, now there are other parameters for example, is undo enabled. Well, this is another one that we're going to be looking at a little bit later in the course. But by default, the value for is undo enabled is false as well. So undo manager is not enabled. And then you have on setup, essentially to create the model container, and get to know if there is anything that's going on when the model container is all set, ready to go. Okay, so you can see it here. This is basically a callback that actually invokes when the creation of the container is done, and you get to know whether it succeeded or failed. All right, so let's go back and let's go back into our app. So we have two changes that we have made so far. Now again, we have not called model context.save because that is going to be called for us by default. Now I'm going to rerun this app and let's see if the changes that we made have actually lived through the lived between the launches. And as you can see, all the changes are basically done. They're actually they were made, and we have not made any changes. All we've done is reiterate that autosave enabled is gonna be true. Okay, now I'm gonna take this out because we're gonna talk about various different techniques of how to enable disable autosave. Okay, so this is the current state. Essentially the autosave is working by default and it's keeping all the changes. Now let's go ahead and start talking about disabling the autosave feature. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and undo the change that I just did, and instead of setting or iterating that we want autosave to be enabled, we're gonna say we want it to be disabled. That means we're gonna set it to false. Now let's build and run the app and add items and make some changes, then rerun the app to see if the changes persist. And since we have we're gonna be updating the app, let's make a few changes. So we have quite a few records to see if the changes were made or not. Okay, so the first easy thing for us to notice, we're gonna change the expiration date so everything becomes red. So that's one change that we're going to do. Now remember that autosave is false, and we don't have we are not calling model context.save, so none of these changes should persist. We're gonna create basically, let's say, pasta bag as the new entry, 1 pound or 1 lbs. Okay, and let's set the date to be in the future, and gonna save it. All right, so now we have 3 record, 2 red, 1 green. Let's go ahead and relaunch. And as soon as we relaunch, all the changes were lost. Now, this is what autosave has been doing for us. Basically, it's been storing all the changes automatically at the persistent layer without us knowing. And now, since we have disabled the autosave, although we are staging those changes, we are never committing them onto the disk. Well, now you might be thinking it's good that autosave is there. Why do you want to set it as false? Well, autosave gives you power, when you get started, to do things for you, but there are a lot of control that you can actually gain back once you disable it, and there are many different things that you can do once your autosave is disabled. So that's gonna be the thing that we're gonna talk about now. Once again, you might be wondering why the app indicated, basically, first of all, that all the changes were successfully made and you're seeing them all here, yet they didn't carry over in the next launch. Well, the reason is that we made the changes. The changes were only staged at the model context level, but they weren't instructed to persist into the backend data store. So the changes remained in the memory. However, during the next app launch, the memory was cleaned, and that caused all the changes to be lost. Now, disabling autosave feature means we are responsible for ensuring that all the changes that persist to the data store, basically, they actually are persisted by us. Now, this can be done by achieving, this can be achieved by simply calling model context.save function wherever or whenever we are making the changes. Okay, now we're gonna have to basically drop model context.save wherever we want to basically make sure that our changes persist. So let's go ahead and update the save button logic and add update pantry item view to ensure that changes persist to the data store after the if and else statement is called. And then we'll call model context.save function to ensure that everything persisted. And then since the call model context.save can throw exception, we can actually wrap that call inside a do try catch. Okay, so we have this if else statement right here. Now, in both of these cases, the model context is setting the changes or staging the changes in the memory. Okay, so what we want to do is we don't want to call or repeatedly call model.save right after we are done making changes here and also here. Well, what we want to do is we want to call it once, and we want to call it before we dismiss this view. So I'm going to say do try model context.save. We're going to catch if there's any error. In this case, we're going to simply print it. And we're going to print it in the console saying error dot localized description, whatever it is, just print it out. Now, build and run, and you'll observe this time that all the changes will persist between the app launches. Okay, so let's go ahead and build and run. And we're going to make all the changes that we need. Now, we're not going to change these expiration dates, so we're going to leave them as is. Let's go ahead and add more items. Pasta bags, or pasta bag, just like that, 1 lbs, and you can add anything you want. I'm just gonna add something to show us that we are adding new things. Uncle chips, 1 bag for that, and this is short expiration date. And as you can see, basically our records, because they are sorted by the expiration date, they are actually being inserted for the for the item that's actually going to expire soon, it's at the top. Okay, let's go ahead and run this again. And we have all the records. So now, because we are calling model.save, all the changes that we have made, they are being persisted. So we disable the autosave feature using model containers modifier inside the app file right here, right? Now, however, in reality, the setting exists in the model context. So we are changing it in the model container, but model container eventually calls the model context to make this change. It simply offers a convenient way for us to toggle this behavior of autosave on and off. Okay, now to set the autosave from model context, we'll have to create a container object and access its model context and then make the changes there. All right, so that is going to be the topic for the next video, and I will see you guys there. Thank you.